Unemployment shatters records and families. An auto industry struggles to reinvent itself. Budget problems demand difficult solutions. This is the Michigan Governor Rick Snyder has promised to revive. Government tainted by corruption. Foreclosures sending families into the streets. A city too big for its dwindling population. This is the Detroit Mayor Dave Bing says must be rebuilt. Two tough businessmen tackling even tougher challenges. What they do in this critical time will shape the entire region for decades to come. You have questions. Tonight, Detroit 2020 gives you the chance to ask them. Snyder, Bing, tough times, real answers. This is a Detroit 2020 interactive special.
Good evening and welcome to this groundbreaking event. Governor Rick Snyder, Mayor Dave Bing, together here in our studios tonight.
Yes, and we appreciate them being here. You could think of this as a virtual town hall meeting. Tonight, our own Joanne Purdon is standing by to monitor a live chat on Detroit2020.com and the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, of course. Plus, Diana Lewis has profiles of just a few of the hundreds of people who took the time to send in questions for us.
Mayor Bing, Governor Snyder, thank you so very much for joining us. And in the last 15 minutes, you guys have been chatting. You worked any deals out yet?
Just talking basketball.
All right. Well, we'll get talking about it.
Not a bad start.
It's a good start for tonight. But right now, we're going to start you off with a hot potato, the census numbers that came out today. Detroit's population is dwindling. 713,000. That's a 25% drop over the last decade. It is also the smallest population in the city since the 1910 census. And Mayor Bing, just how bad is this for the city?
Well, I think it's terrible, quite frankly, but rather than crying over it, it's about getting engaged at this point. I think we got a lot of people who probably didn't even get involved in the census because they didn't think it was worth their time. And it's a big issue, and we're going to go through a recount, and I do think that we'll increase the number. How much, I'm not sure.
Governor Snyder, we want your thoughts on the census as well. I mean, Rochester came out on top with significant growth, but when people think of Michigan, they really think of the city of Detroit. You called this quite drastic.
It is, in terms of the city, and I view it both at the state level. We're the only state in the country to have a decline. Our decline was very small, but it was still the only state with a decline. And I just think it reinforces the call to action. It is time to reinvent the city of Detroit. It is time to reinvent the state of Michigan. It is time to work in partnership and to make this happen. And it just reinforces that call.
All right. Now, on state revenue sharing, Governor, yesterday you announced your plan for local government reform. You are encouraging the sharing of services between local governments, which would force the cities to have to qualify to get money. So why do we need this right now?
Well, it's to move us towards best practice. We've got an antiquated system in terms of our government. We're not providing the services we should at the efficient cost that our citizens deserve. It's about value for money, real results for real people. And so the proposal there was actually to outline a path for success for our communities in partnership with them, to say, here are some benchmarks, here are some areas on accountability, transparency, on service sharing, service consolidation, and employee compensation, to say, here's things that we're doing at the state level, here's what we're encouraging other people to do, and by doing that we can all win, and here's an incentive to support that.
Mayor Bing, we've got to have you weigh in on this because Detroit is going to lose 30% of the revenue sharing dollars, $60 million. That's a major hit for the city of Detroit right now.
Oh, absolutely. It will hurt us, absolutely, no doubt about it. But I do understand what the governor is doing. You know, we come from a background that's pretty comparable from a business perspective, so some of the changes that he's making are necessary, but, you know, when the pain hits you, unlike everybody else, you push back and say, not me, why not somebody else, let's do it a different way. But I think he's got a challenge across the state. I respect what he's doing, and we're going to be competitive.
So you're going to get it done and get in there and work?
We're going to be competitive.
All right. Over the past couple of weeks, we have asked you, our viewers, to send us your questions. And boy, oh boy, did we hear from you. Check out this big stack of emails right here. More than 800 emails sent through Detroit2020.com. That's a lot, Stephen.
You know, the governor looked at that stack of papers a minute ago and said, you know, how long is this show? Those aren't the scripts. Those are the questions. And we'd crunched a lot of numbers, by the way, to find out what it is that people are actually concerned about. Pension cuts. As you might understand, the biggest concern, 22% of all that email is talking about pension cut. Taxes, also the tax plan, how it's going to be worked out, 12%. Film incentives, getting a lot of noise out there and a lot of publicity, yet only 3% of all the emails are concerned about those film incentives, school funding. 10% of those people are concerned about school funding. Legislative pay, and we'll be talking about this right here. 8% of the people do want to know, are the legislators going to be taking the same kind of cuts the citizens are asked to take? City services, Mayor, 6% of the people are concerned about what's happening to city services. Are they getting what they pay for? And then the rest of them, 39%, will cover a broad spectrum of other questions. But this gives you an idea of kind of what we're looking at tonight, Carolyn.
All right, Stephen, certainly a lot of concerns. We'll try our best to get to them. But first, let's focus on the plan to tax pensions. We know Michigan is one of only a handful of states to exempt pensions from income tax, and Diana Lewis learned many Michiganders want to keep it that way.
We received questions from senior citizens and young people with years of work ahead of them. And there was one from a Rochester man who's on the verge of retirement. Paul Quitmeyer is chief financial officer for a local engineering business. He turned 65 this year and plans to retire at the end of the month. But even though he's a money man, his retirement income isn't what he expected.
The market crashed when we were all saving for retirement, and you know, some of that's come back, but it hasn't come back all the way. And housing prices declined.
Then he heard about Governor Snyder's plan to tax retiree pensions. The news has him considering a move out of state. So he sent an email asking the governor how this can be considered sharing the sacrifice when businesses seem to be getting a break.
We've been told for years to save for retirement, and now he's going to take some of that retirement away. And it just doesn't seem fair.
So, Governor, this is probably the most emotional issue you've probably had to deal with here, and we saw all these people protesting in the Capitol all week long over this very thing. So what do you say to a guy like Paul who is setting up his budget, his entire retirement, and all of a sudden having the rug yanked out to the tune of however many hundreds, thousands of dollars it's going to cost him?
Yes, Stephen, and this is a difficult issue, but we are in a crisis, huge budget deficit, and we need to reset things for our future. And if you look at it, not taxing pensions has been an issue for a long time that we've avoided. When you look at, though, one of the first things I always want to remind people is people at the lower income levels, our goal is not to tax them. And it's really a case where we exempt Social Security from Michigan income tax beyond what the federal law requires. And our analysis shows for a retired senior couple, for example, with the average amount of Social Security and the average property tax credit, they wouldn't pay any Michigan income tax until they made more than $40,000. Once you get beyond that level of people making higher income levels, we have a system today where someone that's working hard, they're 80 years old, 70 years old, still working, they're paying the Michigan income tax on their earnings. Mm-hmm. Someone with a pension would pay nothing. You get a basic equity question there. And to get to the point about the business community, our business community quite often could end up paying 10% or more of their income in tax. And our proposal is to make it all come to say, let's pay the same rate regardless of our source of income.
But you see the perception that people are getting, that the old folks are paying more and businesses are paying less. So it looks like a quid pro quo thing.
Well, that's the thing, though. That most people don't realize that business was paying more than twice as much in tax in many cases, because they pay the business tax in addition to paying on their individual income tax. So it was a double tax problem. And if you look at what are our issues in Michigan, job creation is number one. So in many respects, we've been taxing small business at a rate that discouraged job creation, that actually encouraged those companies to leave our state. So we need to get to job creation, and that's really the business piece of it. The other thing I would say to you is we looked at the demographics, that the problem we have today by not taxing pensions is only going to grow. If our senior population is going from 13% today to 20% in the next 20 years, what do you end up with if you don't include that in the tax base in a fair way where you exclude lower income levels? Is essentially for groups that are requiring services, those seniors, they have the pension, we then shift our tax burden to our young people. And in addition to saying we need jobs, the other message I heard on the campaign trail from all of us is about keeping our young people in this state and creating an environment for success. But our tax system is designed to shift that tax burden to the very young people we want to keep here. And we don't need to drive them out of state. We need to create the environment where they want to stay here because there's a job and they're being taxed fairly.
Mayor Bing, let's get you to weigh in on this. Do you think a tax on pensions will help or hurt the city of Detroit? A lot of people are struggling already in the city of Detroit. I mean, should we have waited to the next round of retirees, or do we hit them right now?
Waiting exacerbates the problem, quite frankly. I think in Detroit, as tough as things are, we do have a population where a lot of people are at an age where they're drawing and living on their pension. So it's a tough sell, absolutely no doubt about it. But the longer we wait, the worse it gets. So I do understand where the governor is coming from with this, and I do think I support that. There are a lot of people out there that obviously take it very personally at this point, and you surely can understand and sympathize with them. But if we don't do it now, it's only going to get worse as we move down the road.
A number of viewers sent in emails about the sales tax in Michigan, part of this whole tax package. And I want to show one to you. We've got Barbara from Macomb writes in, why don't you just raise the state sales tax? She says an increase in the sales tax would mean everyone would be paying their share, poor, middle class, and rich. Governor, how do you respond to Barbara from Macomb?
Yeah, one of the challenges there is we already have a 6% sales tax, and it's high enough as it is. And if you look at it, one of the things I wanted to do with the income tax system is to get it to be simple, fair, and efficient. So to ignore this problem on our income tax was just going to perpetuate a problem that within the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years would be a significant structural problem. So this issue needed to get resolved regardless of what else you look at, that we have an unfair income tax system, and it's time to get that straight today.
Now, many viewers told us they think members of the state legislature should also share in this sacrifice. We know they did take a 10% pay cut at the beginning of this year. Richard of Saline sent us this email. He wants to know, what about their medical benefits? What about their pensions, Governor? We want to
Are they going to share the pain?
Well, I always encourage them to be part of this process. They should be part of shared sacrifice, and I hope they step forward and do the same kind of reforms we're talking about and what we've done.
You say you encourage them. Is there any way to compel them?
Again, it needs to be the legislature working with me. So they do need to step forward, and I believe they have. They've already been discussing this as something they need to be part of. So I appreciate them being part of this discussion already.
So you've gotten a lot of good comments then from lawmakers you've talked to one-on-one?
Yeah, I've heard a lot from lawmakers that they agree that they should be part of this process, and I hope they move forward with it in an expeditious way.
All right, people are not just sitting back and watching this special Detroit 2020 broadcast. They're also getting involved in the discussion in real time.
Joanne Purden, of course, is keeping up with what people are saying on Facebook and Twitter, as well as the live chat that's going on right now on Detroit2020.com. So, Joanne, what are viewers saying right now?
Yeah, they're just not watching. They are typing their little fingers away. We have just been inundated with emails in our live chat at Detroit2020.com, talking really almost about everything that the governor and the mayor has said so far. We've had comments on our Detroit 2020 web chat that has talked about everything. Someone posed the question, why are all the cost savings coming from seniors and from the working class? Others are saying, how can you tax my pension? I just don't understand that. Others have, look at this as I scroll up and down here, you see the amount that have come in. Others questioning about roads and what you're going to do to fix the roads. And I know we'll get to some of those as the evening progresses here. I do want to let you know again where you can go. Detroit2020.com, also our Facebook and Twitter pages on Detroit 2020. One neat thing about this whole interactive part of the show tonight is that we put a poll up. You heard Governor Snyder say a second ago that he is not in favor of increasing the state sales tax. 6%. He considers that already high enough. We posed the question on a poll here. Do you think Governor Snyder should consider a state sales tax increase? Put this poll up right at 7 o'clock. No, 65%. So far, yes, 35% of people are weighing in. But another question we got that I found very interesting in light of the census numbers that came out today, and I would like to address this to Mayor Bing. One of our viewers, Nicole, wrote in and said, especially I'm going to say in light of the numbers, to bring people to Detroit, Mayor, after making it safe, of course, would it not make sense to get rid of the city tax that residents and non-residents have to pay on their income? Mayor Bing, what is your take on that?
Well, I think that's a timing issue right now. We're in no position. We need as much revenue as we possibly can get. And so this would not be the appropriate time, I think, to look at a tax reduction. So that's my take on that. I would like to see taxes go down at some point, no doubt about it. But with all of the revenue that we are getting going south, this is not the right time to do it.
So you and the governor sound like you're pretty much in the same boat. You're looking for every penny you can find.
Absolutely.
And you need it.
Yeah.
We have plenty of topics to take up with Detroit Mayor Dave Bing and Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, including competing proposals for a second bridge between Detroit and Windsor.
We'll also talk about the proposed cuts to education funding. It's all still to come right here on Tough Times Real Answers, our Detroit 2020 interactive special. Don't go away. We'll be right back.